Hi, welcome to Gene Rants. I'm Gene, and today, well, these are not one of my more popular videos. I understand that, or more popular vlogs whenever I go to the Middle East, but the purpose of this vlog is to discuss issues that I think are important. I would like to have a lot of subscribers and get a lot of advertising money, but I don't try to figure out what you all want to hear. Well, it's what I think you all should hear or see. Most of the comments, obviously, from me, but I do sometimes share the floor with other speakers, and that's what we'll be doing today. Benjamin Netanyahu had a press conference the day before I'm recording this, 2 days before you're seeing it. It was a press conference in English for the international press. I linked to it in the description. It's 36 minutes, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing, though, because I always link to everything anyways, in case you want to check something. But I think it's worth watching the whole thing if you could spare about a half hour. But I am going to show you just his opening statement and a question that he takes at the end. He gives a brief opening statement, and then I believe it's about 9 minutes, and then he takes a series of questions. That's the rest of the press conference. And well, that's what a press conference is, right? You take questions. Otherwise, it's just a speech or a statement, right? So at the end, he takes questions, and there's one at the end. Now, the first opening statement, it's a comprehensive review of all the issues that Israel is addressing and all the accusations being made against Israel. Now, of course, he discusses, which I'm sure you've heard about, that Israel is now, they're fed up with Hamas and negotiations that go nowhere for hostages. And Israel controls 75% of the Gaza Strip, and now they're going to go and conquer the rest. So he talks about that, so I'm not going to go into detail. He talks about that, but he also addresses press bias, this international press bias that, well, I'm going to let him talk about that. And then after that, as I said, he takes some questions, and he takes a question at the end, which is these calls. It goes hand in hand with this bias against Israel, these constant attacks on Israel. And now you're having... They might as well just, all this international community, they might as well just say right out what they really believe is that they support Hamas. They want Hamas to win. They want Israel to lose, and they hate the idea of the existence of a Jewish state. But we'll get to that. That's behind these calls where you have, well, you know what? That's enough from me. So we'll go to Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, first, here is his opening statement.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you came here because I'd like to take the opportunity to puncture the lies and tell the truth. The truth is that Hamas still has thousands of armed terrorists in Gaza. It vows to repeat the savagery of the October 7th massacre and to do so again and again and again. It openly professes its goal to destroy the state of Israel. It subjugates Gazans. It steals their foods. It shoots them when they try to move to safe zones. And I think it's instructive that now many Gazans are fighting back. They're begging us, they're begging the world, free us, and free Gaza from Hamas. No nation can accept a genocidal terrorist organization, an organization committed to its annihilation, a stone's throw from its citizens. Our goal is not to occupy Gaza. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists. The war can end tomorrow if Gaza, or rather if Hamas lays down its arms and releases all the remaining hostages. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will have overriding security responsibility. A security zone will be established on Gaza's border with Israel to prevent future terrorist incursions. A civilian administration will be established in Gaza that will seek to live in peace with Israel. That's our plan for the day after Hamas, and let me summarize it. 5 principles for concluding the war. 1, Hamas disarmed. 2nd, all hostages freed. 3rd, Gaza demilitarized. 4th, Israel has overriding security control. And 5, non-Israeli, peaceful civilian administration. By that I mean a civilian administration that doesn't educate its children for terror, doesn't pay terrorists, and doesn't launch terrorist attacks against Israel. That's what we want to see in Gaza. So it's neither Hamas nor the PA. That's our plan. Given Hamas's refusal to lay down its arms, Israel has no choice but to finish the job and complete the defeat of Hamas. Now, we've done a great deal. We have about 70 to 75% of Gaza under Israeli control, military control. But we have two remaining strongholds, okay? These are Gaza City and the central camps in the Muasi. That's roughly, it's schematically presented here, but it's fairly accurate. Last Thursday, Israel's Security Cabinet, instructed the IDF to dismantle the two remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps. Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily. We will do so by first enabling the civilian population to safely leave the combat areas to designated safe zones. In these safe zones, they'll be given ample food, water, and medical care, as we've done before. And again, contrary to false claims, our policy throughout the war has been to prevent a humanitarian crisis, while Hamas's policy has been to create it. Since the beginning of the war, Israel has let in close to 2 million tons of aid. I know of no other army that has enabled such aid to go to the civilian population in enemy territory. Now, if we had a starvation policy, no one in Gaza would have survived after 2 years of war. But our policy has been the exact opposite. We let in, as I said, almost 2 million tons of aid and sent millions of text messages, millions of phone calls to Gazans to get out of harm's way. Yet in the last few months, Hamas has violently looted the aid trucks meant to get to Palestinian civilians. They deliberately created a shortage of supply. And the UN consistently refused, until recently, to distribute the thousands of trucks that we led into Gaza through the Kerem Shalom crossing. So our problems, we've had tons of uncollected food rotting on the Gazan side of the border because the UN was and still is unwilling to deliver all of it. Here are the tons and tons and tons of humanitarian aid that Israel led in to the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. It's just sitting there because it's not distributed. So now we're going to go around this obstacle. We are going around it by doing three things. One, can I show this, please? Okay. Designating safe corridors for humanitarian aid distribution. No, that's showing the problem, not showing the solution, but here it is. First, designating rather safe corridors for aid distribution. You can drive trucks there and you'll be safe. Second, increasing the number of safe distribution points managed by the Gazan humanitarian foundations. And three, airdrops. That's airdrops done by the Israeli Air Force, and we're inviting others to join us. The result has been a humanitarian surge, which we're coordinating with President Trump and his team, and hundreds of trucks have gone in recent days. This is preventing hunger, but it's not prevented the global campaign of lies that we have all witnessed. So in Gaza, despite Hamas's obstacles, 2 million people are now getting access to humanitarian aid. But I'll tell you who isn't. The only ones that are being deliberately starved in Gaza are our hostages. This is Evyatar David. Look at his hand, at his arm. He's being deliberately starved by these Hamas monsters. And look at the Hamas captor. Look at the difference. He's eating, and he's eating well. The purpose of this news conference is to puncture the lies and spread the truth. But that distortion has been propelled around the earth, almost the way that the Jewish people were maligned in the Middle Ages. Every massacre of the Jewish people was preceded by massive vilification. We were said to be spreading vermin to Christian societies. We were said to be poisoning the wells. We were said to slaughter Christian children for their blood. And as these lies spread around the globe, they were followed by horrific massacres, pogroms, displacements, finally culminating in the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust. Today, the Jewish state is being maligned in a similar way. Everything that I told you could be verified easily, but it hasn't. And the international press has bought hook, line, and sinker Hamas statistics, Hamas claims, Hamas forgeries, and Hamas photographs. For example, these three children. The first one is Osama al-Raqub. He is in Italy getting treatment because Israel got him out. That's what he looks like today. He has a genetic disease that damages the lungs and digestive system. It makes it hard to absorb nutrients and gain weight. Okay? So Israel facilitated Osama's travel to Italy, where he got the medical aid that transformed his position. The second one is Abdul Qadir al-Fayumi. He suffers from a genetic neurological disorder, spinal muscular atrophy, a degenerative condition that causes muscle wasting, weakness, and severe weight loss unrelated to nutrition. This was the real cause of his frail appearance, not starvation. In fact, he was treated in Israel in 2018. Doesn't help because it's a congenital disease and it defies most treatment at least. The third one is the most celebrated one. This is a New York Times cover photo. It's on the front page of Muhammad Zakaria Ayub and his mother. Muhammad Zakaria Ayub is suffering from a genetic illness which you're familiar with. It's called cerebral palsy. His mother is well fed and his brother is healthy. I'm looking right now into the possibility of a governmental suit against the New York Times because this is outrageous. Of course, the correction was postage size. I don't know where it was buried. But this is outrageous. These are the three most celebrated photos, and they're all fake. It's the kind of malignant lies that were leveled at the Jewish people in the Middle Ages. We won't suffer. We won't allow it to go unchallenged, and this is the purpose of this press conference. I hope that you open your eyes to a simple fact. Hamas lies. Now you can ask me any question you want.
That was his opening statement, Netanyahu's opening statement. No comments necessary from me. Now this is the question that he got at the end, having to do with calls for a Palestinian state. And well, here's Benjamin Netanyahu again.
Matthew Doran from ABC Australia. Countries such as the UK, Canada, France say that they will support Palestinian statehood in the next short while. You've described that as a reward for Hamas here. Other countries like Australia are also walking down this path, not quite there yet. How much of this is a reward for Hamas and how much of it is actually countries like those who have repeatedly said Israel does have a right to defend itself but are now struggling to stomach what they're seeing you and your military doing in Gaza?
Well, first of all, those who say that Israel has a right to defend itself are also saying, but don't exercise that right. When we do what any country would do faced with this genocidal terrorist organization that has performed the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust, I think we're actually applying force judiciously, and they know it. They know what they would do if right next to Melbourne or right next to Sydney, you had this horrific attacks. I think you would do it, at least what we're doing, probably maybe not as efficiently and as precisely as we're doing it. We've lost quite a few soldiers in that effort. But that's the first thing. I think that the second thing you ask is Palestinian state. Well, the assumption, the prevailing assumption in this is that the problem that we have with the Palestinians is the absence of a Palestinian state. And if they were given a Palestinian state, they would stop the efforts to destroy the Jewish state. But the Palestinians were offered a state many times, including in the partition resolution, and they turned it down. They were offered statehood by my predecessors with lavish concessions. They turned it down. Because the Palestinians are not about creating a state, they're about destroying a state. That's why they opposed the Jewish national movement to create a state called Zionism. They opposed it before the inception of the Jewish state, and they've opposed it since. They've opposed it when they had the Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, and Gaza in their hold. They didn't say, let's create a state there. They didn't say that. Because again, their goal is the destruction of a state. It defies imagination or understanding how intelligent people around the world, okay, including seasoned diplomats, government leaders, and respected journalists, fall for this absurdity. It's so easy to verify, you know. And look at the PA, okay? Look at the Palestinian national movement today is divided, okay? Divided between two forces, okay? The Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria and Hamas in Gaza, okay? Hamas in Gaza had a de facto state. It had a state. And it used it to launch a war of terror against Israel because their doctrine is that the destruction of Israel should proceed with forceful and direct military and terrorist moves. That's what they did on October 7th. And that's what they'll do again if we don't destroy them. The Palestinian Authority, on the other hand, says no. First, Israel has to be reduced to indefensible boundaries. You've got to get them out with the ICC, with the UN, with the Security Council resolutions, drive them to indefensible boundaries, and then deliver the blow, because Israel is too strong in its present configuration. These discussions are open, they're held. Anybody, you don't need Israeli intel for it, believe it, okay? You can just scour the web, you'll find it, okay? So they have no difference about the goal. That's why the Palestinian children in Judea and Samaria and the Palestinian children, that is the Palestinian children under the PA and the Palestinian children under Hamas, are educated with exactly the same textbooks. That's why the PA calls its public squares against mass killers of Jews. That's why they have pay for slay. The more Jews you murder, the more you get paid, or your family gets paid. I mean, so that's the crux of the problem. The real reason that this conflict persists is not because of the absence of a Palestinian state, but the persistent Palestinian refusal to recognize a Jewish state in any boundary, okay? Now, when you give them a Palestinian state, when they haven't abandoned the goal of destroying the Jewish state, all you're doing is you're bringing the next war closer. Again, Hamas had a state. You just brought the war closer. And if you did the same thing in Judea and Samaria, right above Tel Aviv, enveloping Jerusalem, some say cutting Jerusalem into two, that's all that's going to happen. You're going to have the radicals again take it over, Iran take it over, and start a state from improved boundaries, start a war with improved boundaries. That's not going to happen. I think the solution to this problem is that the Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves in the places where they live and none of the powers to threaten Israel. They should obviously reform their whole education system. They should reform their whole historical outlook and say, all right, you know, we accept that Israel is here to stay, not as a fact, as a physical or geographic fact, but as a fact of historical equity. You know, if they want to live here next to us, they have to stop seeking our destruction. And to give them an independent state with all the trimmings, okay, is to invite a future war and a certain war. And that's something that today the Israeli public forcefully opposes. Before the war, by the way, it was about, you know, two-thirds in the overall population. Probably 60-40, or even more, in the Jewish population. But now it's changed more dramatically. I mean, we had a vote in the Knesset a few months ago about the possibility of, having a Palestinian state. And the result was 99-9. 99-9. And that covers a very broad spectrum. And today, most of the Jewish public is against the Palestinian state for the simple reason that they know it won't bring peace, it'll bring war. To have European countries and Australia march into that rabbit hole, just like that, fall right into it, and buy this canard is disappointing, and I think it's actually shameful. But it's not going to change our position. Again, we will not commit national suicide to get a good op-ed for 2 minutes. We won't do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just have one comment regarding the two excerpts that you saw. And again, I advise everybody, I recommend watching the whole thing. I link to it, as I said, in the description. But there is another point that he did not mention, is that, well, he showed you the idea of these fake photos supposedly showing starving children. He named the individuals, these children, describe their congenital diseases, that they are not starving. But what he didn't mention, which I will mention now, is where are the starving adults? If there is starvation, if the population of Gaza is starving, where are the starving adults? And where, especially adults who have children. You're seeing, well, you saw in that one photo, the mother and the child who has cerebral palsy is not really starving. She looks well fed, and actually it's a cropped photo that, if you see the whole photo, which I have seen, I'm not going to put, you can find it on the internet, but it shows that child's brother. He's well fed too, and he is obviously healthy. So where are the starving adults, and especially these adults with children? Are we to, I mean, if these children are really starving and the adults are well fed, then these adults, it wouldn't be Israel, or even Hamas, it would be these adults. These parents would be starving their own children. They're eating well, and they're starving their own children. So what would it say about these parents, these mothers, if they would starve their own children? And of course, they're not. Even in, I just can't believe it. As depraved as a lot of these guys and people are, how they cheer and pass out candy whenever a Jew is killed. But that's changing, as Netanyahu mentioned. They are starting to fight back. In fact, there's a guy, I think his name is Abu Shabab. He is starting. He leads a group that is working with the Israelis. The Israelis are providing weapons, and they are fighting against Hamas. So some people are starting to rise up, but I think they're fair weather riser-uppers, that if Hamas wins, that they will turn. And well, this guy Abu Shabab, there's already a price on his head from Hamas, or I don't know if there's a price, but they have vowed to kill him. But if they can get their hands on him. But the point is, again, that I just wanted to make that last point about these calls about starvation. But that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Your comments, agree or disagree, are always welcome in the comments section. If you could subscribe, that would really, really be great. Share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.